Oh man, this shit doing numbers. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between and beyond. So yeah, after the PS2 retrospective video that was watched solely by my friends whose demographics consist of 0% neurotypical heterosexuals, I was pretty satisfied with myself. For a month or so. After that, I was thrown back to the crushing reality of spending my days dealing with intestinal pain, the crushing guilt that comes after binge eating, and the random bouts of paranoia that forced me to block the front door of my apartment with folding chairs to be able to sleep with a moderate level of comfort. I could fix my diet, exercise more, see a psychiatrist, stop dating BPD patients, stop drinking every other day, and stop tarring my lungs. But I could also just play more video games, and that takes a lot less effort, and a lot less money. And brother, I was missing Burnout like a motherfucker. I was still hungry for more PS2 shenanigans. Nostalgia is the drug that keeps me from killing myself, after all. Of all the games I covered in my previous video, Burnout Dominator was the one that resulted in the most entertaining section in my opinion. So why not use this opportunity to make more content so I can feel like I'm doing something besides rotting in my bed? The rules are simple. I must complete all events and get all the gold medals. Every other unlockable is optional. We'll start with Burnout 3 because I'm really bad at counting. As I said in the PS2 retrospective video, after finishing Burnout Dominator, I wanted to play Burnout 3 Takedown since it is the fan favorite. So I assumed it would be better or at least on par with Dominator. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The game is good, but it's not as punchy and nowhere near as challenging. The World Tour is presented differently. There's 3 different locations and you go back and forth between them as you finish events and unlock new ones. They're mostly the same, with the exception of crash events, which didn't appear in Dominator. The objective here is to crash your car in a way that causes the most damage possible to other vehicles. They're kind of like puzzles where you have to experiment which route is the optimal one and which bonuses and multipliers are worth getting to maximize your score. There's also 10 headlines you can collect by beating a high score on each location. I know these crash events are one of the most iconic and fondly remembered parts of the game by the fans, but they fucking suck. They were pretty nice at first, but they got pretty old by the 15th time I had to do them. Unfortunate because there's 100 of them. I had to take a 4-hour break from actually enjoying myself to get all 100 crash event gold medals, and that was the worst time of this whole playthrough. These things bring the game down so much. It also doesn't help that there's no music during these. While you're burning and crashing it out on the tracks, the soundtrack is occasionally interrupted by DJ Striker, who provides some humorous and quirky commentary. That's something I found interesting. It was kind of charming at first, but after a while, having your music interrupted by him saying the same goddamn line about the Queen of England smashing bottles and about the fish that's as big as his cock gets really annoying.
What's up, it's me Striker from Crash FM. I just turned myself into a pickle. What? What do you mean it's not funny anymore? What the fuck ever. You're listening to Crash FM.
Thankfully, you can turn his commentary off in the settings. Fun fact, DJ Striker did porn. Not only that, it was porn directed by James Gunn. Don't worry, it was all PG.
What? It's a birth defect.
Striker, can you pay attention? Maybe take note?
Yeah.
See what some real acting is like?
Check it out.
Hell yeah! What the fuck was that?
Anyway, the soundtrack is pretty good. High energy and edgy. They even got MCR in there. Listening to Rise Against again was a bittersweet thing. I used to listen to them a lot back when I was a teenager and regularly did the most idiotic thing a teenager can do. Hope. Animal and Over the Counter Culture are my favorite tracks. The other events are pretty standard. Races, burning laps, Grand Prix, road rages, eliminator races, and face-offs. One-on-one races where you can unlock the opponent's car if you beat them. Shout out to the Tropical Drive preview lap. That was pretty fun. The physics were the first thing I noticed. The best way I can describe it is that it's a lot more bouncy. In general, the cars feel a lot lighter. They tend to slide around a lot more, and taking down opponents by smashing them against the wall is a lot harder. However, it is really easy to take them down by ramming into their rear. There's a lot more variety in the vehicles. Each one has a speed and weight stat, as opposed to Dominator, where every car felt pretty much the same. Although I gotta say, the number of cars you can unlock is bloated as all hell. There's 67 in total, and I unlocked 2 or 3 every other event at the start. So I was gonna make a 6-7 joke when I said that there are 67 cars to unlock. And then I searched for 6-7 meme on Google, and then the page did this. I don't think I could have found or come up with a better joke than this. Something I liked was that you can restart individual races and Grand Prix instead of having to restart the whole thing. It's nice, but it didn't make much of a difference for most of the game. It was rare for me to not finish in first place in these events. With one exception. The game is generally a lot easier than Dominator. Burnout chaining, one of the main focuses of Dominator, is unfortunately not present. Apparently, aside from that one, the mechanic only appears in Burnout 1, 2, and Paradise. I really missed it. Trying to drive and drift as fast as possible without crashing while keeping a high burnout chain going was an incredible source of adrenaline. Without it, the races felt a lot less intense. Until the second to last event, which was my favorite one by far, the US Circuit Racer Grand Prix. This is it. This is the only time this game gave me the same feeling Burnout Dominator did. It took me an hour and a half to beat this, and I was foaming at the mouth, screaming, growling, banging my fist on my desk so hard one of the screws flew out, banging my head against the wall, and biting my arm until it bled from sheer anger. Now this is the burnout I want. I want to be reduced to an animal. I want to be fucked by the AI until I conquer the track completely. This shit was so fucking incredible, it almost made me forgive the 100 fucking crash events I had to do. Seriously, why are there 100 of them? Holy shit. Remove like 70 of them and the game would become a hell of a lot better. In the end, it took me 19 hours to get all 173 gold medals. I also got all special events and crash headlines, 12 out of 20 signature takedowns, they are a lot easier to get than the signature shortcuts, 65 out of 67 vehicles, and only 1 out of 4 trophies. As you can tell, as someone who came from Dominator, this game was not quite my thing. I would still recommend it, but I would advise against going for all gold medals. Alright, now that Burnout 3 is out of the way, let's go back to the first one and make our way to Revenge. I gotta say, playing Burnout 1 after Dominator and Takedown feels kinda like that meme about playing the Metal Gear series in chronological order. It's extremely simple and most of the things you may associate with Burnout are not here yet. The main game is made up of 7 Grand Prix and 1 marathon, which is just an extra long race. They last around 2.5 hours in total. Pretty standard racing stuff. You can push, or herd, your opponent into other cars, but takedowns are not really a thing yet. The vehicles are really sensitive to damage. The mildest of impacts can result in a crash. The cars are categorized as easy, normal, hard, and special. I'm not sure what the difficulty labels refer to. I guess it's the handling? I finished all championships with a muscle car, which is labeled as hard, and I tried a few other cars when I played the face-offs. You can definitely feel the difference between them, but the game is really easy anyway. The AI is noticeably bad. I saw my fair share of absolutely stupid crashes. The cars sure are noticeably slower here. The soundtrack does the heavy lifting when it comes to creating tension during races. It makes them feel a lot more intense than they really are. When I had to race against the whole fucking bus, I just gave up all sportsmanship and used the Saloon GT. Fuck this. So, remember when I said the first game had burnout chaining? Well, it turns out you won't be using it that much. I only managed to chain a few of them a handful of times during the championships. Since the cars are heavier and a lot more difficult to control, boosting will likely lead to a crash a lot more than it would in the following games. You also can't use the boost until the bar is completely filled up, and sometimes it doesn't fully recover after a burnout. Not sure why that is. Also, the burnout text meekly showing up at the bottom of the screen with no sound effect or anything like that kills me. Regarding the soundtrack, we're dealing with 11 original techno tracks only. It was composed by Stephen Root, who worked in most of the Burnout games. He also worked on Hexen and Black, and FIFA Soccer 96, but let's not hold it against him. No one has a perfect portfolio. It's a pretty nice soundtrack. The game is nowhere near as long as the later ones, so the small number of tracks isn't really a problem. Licensing songs only became a thing from Burnout 3 onwards. There's a few extra game modes, namely Survival, Free Run, and Face Off. In Survival mode, you have to finish a race without crashing. Free Run allows you to race freely in a track with no opponents and no traffic, and Face Off is a standard one-on-one race, same as it would remain in the later games. You can unlock a few cars by completing the face-offs, but the other modes don't really have any rewards. Unlike the other games, when I played this one, I didn't really feel like playing it for long periods of time. I usually just played sessions of less than an hour, as opposed to the 3 or 4 hour sessions when playing the other Burnouts. In fact, the whole game only lasted about 3.5 hours in total. You can definitely tell there's a lot of potential here, but overall this is just a pretty standard racing game. Not a lot of content to experience here. Also, James Sutherland is on the credits. Burnout 2 Point of Impact was released less than a year after the first game, and boy is it a massive improvement. This thing makes Burnout 1 look like an early access game on Steam. Honestly, just the fact that the Boost OK and Burnout texts are now shown near the center of the screen with a unique font accompanied by sound effects is already enough for me. You start out doing the Offensive Driving 101 tutorial course, and after completing that, you unlock the first championship. After finishing that one, you unlock the Custom Series championship. The difference between them are the cars utilized in the events. I stuck with a cop car and supercar most of the time, but there's a good amount of options here. I forgot to mention in the Burnout 1 section, but both on that game and on this one you can choose between manual and automatic transmissions. Not that I would ever choose manual. I limit my gear shifting action to my own knob, unless you're wearing really thick winged eyeliner. In that case, please DM me. Who knows? Maybe we can replace our transmission fluids. Things are starting to get familiar here. We got medals, trophies, and crash events. Though the trophies are awarded by completing Grand Prix instead of finishing specific challenges like in Burnout 3 onwards. Now about the crash events, thankfully Criterion had the decency to not include 100 of them. No, there's only 15 events here and they take less than an hour to complete. Some of them took me a few tries, but for the most part they're nothing too difficult. Takedowns are still not a thing, but we do have Pursuit Mode, which seems to be its spiritual predecessor. In it, you drive a cop car and you have to take down another car by hitting it until its health bar depletes. Not quite the same thing, but I see the vision. Apparently, making it crash into traffic also works. It only happened once in my playthrough and it really felt like the game glitched out, but oh well. Face-offs are also back. Both of these events unlock new cars. The game has 15 tracks, 30 if you count the reversed versions. Airport Terminal 3 is my favorite one. It's the shortest one in the game, and in the reversed version you drive against oncoming traffic, making it the easiest one to chain burnouts in. The highest I went was 18. It's a lot easier to chain them compared to the first game. As you may remember, if you're one of the rare individuals that actually pay attention to what I say, crashing your car was extremely easy in the first game. They dialed it back a lot here. It's pretty damn hard to take yourself out, unless some car from the traffic throws themselves right in front of you, which they tend to do sometimes. The crash events are where the nerve collision physics are most noticeable. It's really easy to make your car just slide right in between traffic and completely miss every single vehicle. Once again, there's no licensed songs here. It's all original tracks made by Stephen Root, and they are great. The main theme would later be reused in Burnout Dominator. I already knew that, because it's in the title, but still, it's very nice to hear it again. The soundtrack is dynamic, and apparently this is the only game in the series where this is the case. Each track is an alternate version that plays when you're boosting. Simple, but it is effective because it encourages you to boost as much as possible to hear these absolute bangers. Especially A Photograph, which plays in Palm Bay Heights. For the most part, the game is fairly easy. I'm starting to think Dominator really spoiled me when it comes to difficulty. The rubber banding feels really weird here. As far as I can tell, if you don't get yourself in first place at the start of the race, it becomes damn near impossible to catch up. On the other hand, if you do manage to get yourself in first place, it's really hard for you to be overtaken, unless you crash 2 or 3 times in a row. According to the records, I finished the races in first place 95% of the time and in second place 5% of the time. The first time I actually came in second in a race was in the Speed Street Grand Prix, the first one from the Custom Series Championship. The stats don't count the face-off, so I won't either. That's also when I discovered that you actually need to get all gold medals in a Grand Prix to unlock the next Pursuit event. The last one, Heart Attack Grand Prix, is another one I had to do more than once. I had to restart this thing twice to get all gold medals. Unlike Burnout 3, you can't restart individual races. But, as it turns out, you can just start the event and keep retiring until you get to the race you actually need to replay. It feels like I'm cheesing it, but I don't really give a shit. The game is still pretty short. It took me about 7 hours to complete all events and get all gold medals, which unlocks the infinite boost cheat. Neat. This was a massive step up in quality. It might not have takedowns, but I think this is where the series started to really take shape. Definitely worth checking out. Oh look, Lady Manila is in the credits.
A human, too lustful to fear anything. Could such a thing even exist? What horror!
I was just wondering if you wanted to hang out with me and play Burnout Revenge for the PS2.
Alright, we're back into the kind of Burnout I like. This game came out a few years before Dominator, and a lot of things from that game were first introduced here. Plus, this rub shoulders with Takedown is a fan favorite. This is exciting. Honey, I'm home. It still doesn't have Burnout chaining, but whatever, it's not like I like it or something. The World Tour is divided into 10 series, which are unlocked by advancing through 11 ranks. You increase them by collecting stars, which are given to you upon finishing an event based on the medal you get and your performance during it. When playing an event, you can get an OK, good, great, or awesome rating by driving dangerously, boosting, and finishing laps without crashing. Bronze medals take a star away, silver gives you nothing, and gold gives you an extra star. So, to get all 5 of them, you have to get an awesome rank and a gold medal. It sounds fine, but I can count on one hand the amount of times I didn't get an awesome rating. It's really easy to get it, I usually just ignore it entirely. The challenges are divided by tracks here. Each one is 8, and getting all of them unlocks a new car. I only managed to complete all of them in Motor City, but I did get close to completing the others. By the time I finished the World Tour, there were only 13 challenges left. There aren't any trophies here though. Signature takedowns are also back, and I got about half of them during my time. New additions include the Crash Breaker events and Traffic Attack. Crash Breaker events are the same as normal events, but with Crash Breaker enabled. In Burnout 3 it was only available on Crash events. I don't know why they decided to only enable it on specific events, but oh well, it works fine mostly. There were a few times where I activated Crash Breaker and the game just respawned me before the explosion happened. According to the Burnout wiki, this is a rare glitch, yet it happened to me twice on the same race. Go figure. It's still very satisfying, and the takedown sound effect still gives me a stiffy. Also, this is the first time I got a total takedown. Hell yeah. Traffic attack events focus on a totally new mechanic, traffic checking. Basically, now you can hit cars from behind and launch them forward to take other cars out. It's really hard to aim though, and if you're a dumbass like me, there's a high chance of checking yourself and wrecking yourself. You can check oncoming traffic, cross traffic, or big rigs and buses. The traffic attack events consist of destroying cars and performing trick shots into large vehicles to score points. They're alright, but they do get repetitive after a while. I just let the timer run out after I get the gold. Crash events got a bit of a makeover. Now you have a little mini game where you have to hit X on the green parts of this bar to get a perfect start. If you miss one of them, you only get a fast start. Miss both, and you get a slow start. And if you hit the red bit, you explode and everyone starts laughing at you. There's no Crash Breaker or Score Multiplier pickups. Now destroying vehicles fill up your boost bar, and when it's full, you can activate Crash Breaker. When the meter reaches 100%, it starts going down and you have to tap R2 to keep it from decreasing too much and lowering the impact of the explosion. Some vehicles have more powerful Crash Breakers and take a lot more tapping to keep the meter from decreasing. I actually had to switch the bindings for R2 and triangle because my shitty Chinese controller has an extra bad and terrible R2 button. Is that cheating? Don't know, don't care. During the events, you also have to keep an eye on the wind speed and direction. There's a target car you can destroy for extra points too. Compared to Burnout 2 and 3, the crash events are a lot less boring here, but they still make up the lowest points of the game. Just like before, I played the last bunch of crash events in one sitting to get them over with because I thought it would be preferable to having my time with the events I actually enjoyed interrupted. Also, Mountain the Curb can go fuck itself. I hate this thing. It took me 2 hours to get the gold medal. Fuck off. Additionally, having a Burnout 3 save file awards you a bonus car in the crash events. You can also get a bonus car if you have a Madden NFL 06 save file. Why the hell would you? And if you have a black save file, you can unlock the Black Elite Racer earlier. Normally, you only unlock it after reaching the Elite rank, the 11th and last one you reach in the World Tour. That trunk flopping in the wind drives me crazy. It's one of the fastest cars in the game too, alongside the Logitech car, hello! Boy do I have stuff to say about the soundtrack on this one. Have you ever read The Enigma of Amigara Fault by Junji Ito? Well, let's just put it like this. This soundtrack is my whole. It was made for me. This is my first time playing Revenge, but there is one song that I have known for 7 or 8 years. Shotgun by The Outline. I discovered it thanks to Racevic's video on Burnout Revenge, where it was used in the outro.
Back in the day, I ignored Burnout Dominator for the PS2, thinking it was just some lazy port of a PSP game. It's actually an excellent game in its own right.
You son of a bitch!
With elements from Revenge.
I love it so fucking much. Not just a song, You Smash It, We'll Build Around It is one of my most listened to albums ever. It may not sound like much to other people, but to me, this is peak 2000s rock. This is part of the LP extract, my soul, my essence. If you squeeze me like a wet towel, this album would start dripping out. Holy shit, I adore this thing. Alongside Slaves of Fear, Appeal to Reason, Villains, Mezzanine, and Black Lab's greatest hits, this thing was the soundtrack of my high school years. Anyway, back to Revenge. There's so much stuff here. Billy Talent, another favorite of mine, Bullet for My Valentine, Avenged Sevenfold, a mindless self-indulgence remix by KMFDM. Can you get any goddamn edgier than that? This is a fucking goldmine. Riot Radio was recommended to me by Spotify back in November of last year, and when I heard it for the first time in my playthrough, I had a very strange feeling. Sure, I started listening to quite a few of the Burnout Dominator tracks after playing it again, so it makes sense that it would recommend songs from the other games in the series, but it is still a dark reminder that the algorithm is my god. The sound design has always been great, but Revenge is just extra sexy. Check out the results screen. Now this is my kind of ASMR. While racing, the sense of speed is greatly enhanced by the wind sounds. The screen shaking also helps a lot. The loading screens are considerably longer here compared to Burnout 3, but they're not as bad as Dominator. One thing that is really bad are the fairly frequent slowdowns. It's most noticeable during crash events, but they do happen on races regularly enough for it to be an annoyance. Side note, did you know Burnout 1 and 2 are bigger in size than Revenge? Actually, they're bigger in size than Burnout 3 as well. No clue why that is. When I played Dominator, I mentioned that after a takedown, the game steers your car along and gives you a few seconds of invulnerability. This happens here as well, but I noticed that it is a lot more common for the game to place you in front of a wall, and just like in Dominator, it is a pain to get yourself back on track without spinning around like a dumbass. I also got slammed out of bounds twice, which didn't happen in any of the other games while I was recording.
I can tell, I'm... like, you're gonna notice that...
The game was a little hard when I started, but I got used to it pretty quickly. It does have a few difficulty spikes here and there, especially from rank 5 onwards, like the White Mountain burning lap in this Crash Breaker race where I crashed 10 goddamn times. Still finished on second though. Races and road rages only get a bit more consistently challenging in ranks 8, 9, and 10. Still, as much as I said Burnout 3 was not quite my thing overall, there was no extra challenging event like the US Circuit Racer Grand Prix here, as evidenced by the fact that I didn't tear chunks of my arm off with my teeth this time. One thing that I appreciate after playing Burnout 2 is that most Grand Prix only have 3 races, except for 2 or 3 of them that have 4 for some reason. In the second game they have up to 7. Once again, it was rare for me to not finish in first place, but I did finish in 4th place in the final Grand Prix, which is pretty embarrassing. In my defense, I didn't realize it was a single lap race, so I wasn't fully locked in. The AI is way more aggressive here, by the way. These guys are out for blood, and when one of them takes you out, they become your rival. Take them out to get your revenge. Oh, I get it! So far, this was the longest game of the series, totaling 26 hours to get all gold medals and all stars. I also unlocked 70 out of 78 cars and completed 51 out of 64 challenges. You need 100% completion to unlock the credits, unfortunately, so I cannot confirm or deny that James Sutherland had a hand in this project. This was a pretty damn good experience. I found it a lot more enjoyable than Burnout 3, and there were times it even rivaled Dominator. The crash events still do bring it down, and the traffic attack events did get old towards the end, but this is somewhat well balanced overall. At least there aren't 100 fucking crash events for me to finish. I'm glad Criterion learned their lesson and they never did that again. Burnout Legends for the PSP came out on the same day as Burnout Revenge, and ew man, that's disgusting. It's the first game in the series to be released on a handheld console, but it looks fine. Certainly it can't be that bad. Ah, no! The 5 series in the World Tour are divided by vehicle type, just like they would be in Dominator. The game reuses maps from Burnout 1, 2, and 3, both on the World Tour and on the crash events, with some small changes. Unfortunately, the game doesn't include the long tracks from the 3rd game, but that's understandable. It's still very nice to see some familiar sights. As you'd expect, the graphical effects are a lot less intense here, so the sense of speed is nowhere near as good as the last 2 games. It's somewhere in between Burnout 1 and 2 as far as I can tell. All the races and face-offs have 3 laps, and all the timed events have a 3-minute time limit. It's not a big deal, but it does make the game slightly more repetitive. The Grand Prix also have 3 races, except for the Super Series Special Grand Prix, which has 4. I have no clue why they decided on that one specifically. Seriously, what's the criterion? Holy shit, I need to kill myself immediately. Burnout 2's pursuit events make a comeback, but they are slightly different here. While you can just hit the car until the health bar depletes, you actually have to make it crash if you want the gold medal, which requires you to take your opponent out in less than a minute. I honestly don't know how exactly it works. It's a lot harder than takedowns on regular events. As far as I can tell, you have to get them by pushing them in the walls or hitting them while in aftertouch. Sometimes it's pretty inconsistent. Eliminator events function the same way they did in Burnout 3, with last place being eliminated at the end of a lap instead of every 30 seconds like in Revenge. As for the races, face-offs, and burning laps, they're nothing too special. The fact that the game runs at 30 FPS instead of 60 is a bit jarring at first, but you get used to it. On that topic, while writing the script, I checked my notes and my exact thoughts on the 30 FPS thing were the following. Got the ick in the first few minutes, but started enjoying it after a while, just like anal sex.
He has such a way with words.
Scoring takedowns seems to be slightly harder, so maybe that affects the physics somewhat. There's also no traffic checking here, but I didn't really miss it that much. Oh boy, 100 more crash events for me to finish. I finally figured it all out. They're called crash events because they make me crash the fuck out! A lot of the events are recycled from Burnout 3. Maybe all of them are recycled, I don't know, they're not memorable enough to me. They work the same way they did in Burnout 3 for the most part too, although the score is not shown until the end for some reason. Crash Breaker and bonus pickups return, but the score multiplier ones don't. That can make a few events a little harder. Crash Breaker is also noticeably weaker, and steering your car during it is damn near impossible. Same goes for the Aftertouch and the regular events. Should this video survive me, which isn't much of a challenge considering my health habits, I'd like to say a very big and resounding fuck you to the following events: Sunshine Smash, Tourist Trap, and worst of all, Drive Angry. Yeah, motherfucker, I am angry! Here's the deal. This event was the second to last one I finished. I must have spent 2 hours trying to get the gold medal, and I just could not do it. I actually had to look up a walkthrough, and what I found shook me to my very core. You can get a boost at the start of the event by following a very specific button combination, which is never mentioned. And get this, Drive Angry is the only event in the entire game where this boost is mandatory to get the gold medal, because without it, you can't get to this damn truck on time. Go fuck yourself. I went through the racing game equivalent of a very unenthusiastic cock and ball torture session, and all I got was this lousy fire truck. Anyway, I'd like to give a very special shout out to James Cunningham for his Drive Angry gold medal tutorial. Thank you. Without your help, I would have been forced to break the arbitrary rule I foolishly set for myself. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Nabas Evangod for his videos that also helped me a lot with some other tough events, and Oscar Byrne and Joshimus for keeping me entertained while I went through this gauntlet.
I put a condom in my mouth once.
Side note, I regret to inform you that on the 19th of April of 2026, the Chinese controller passed away during my playthrough. After many hours of having to stand perfectly still to make sure the controller didn't disconnect in the middle of a race, it disconnected one final time. So I replaced it with another one. Goodbye Luckton. Hello. Features include a fully functional R2 button, a strangely sticky R3, and a defective USB connector that doesn't latch onto the port correctly. In other words, I bought a pre-broken controller. I'd really rather have an 8-bit 2 Ultimate, but that's 15 times more expensive. Back to Burnout. The soundtrack is a reduced selection of the same tracks that appeared in Revenge, so nothing to add here. The only difference aside from that is the fact that there's no button to skip songs here. I didn't go out of bounds this time, but the other drivers sure did when I scored a takedown. Fairly frequently too. There was also this one instance where I crashed twice in a very short span of time and got stuck on impact mode and had to restart the event. Odd, but oh well, it only happened once. By the way, I just noticed this. Why does the logo on the tanker look exactly like AM's version of the Nazi Germany flag that appears in the Nimdoc session of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream? What did they mean by this? Surprisingly, it took me 22 hours to beat the game, which is 3 more hours than it took me to beat Burnout 3. I think this is pretty decent for a PSP game. I say this having never played a PSP game before, of course, but it plays just like the previous games and has just as much content. A mixed blessing, but okay. Just like the third game, I would recommend it, but I strongly advise you to not bother getting all the Crash Event gold medals. Hell yeah, we're back to Dominator after 77 hours playing the games that came before it. Let's see if the experience I accumulated over the past few months will make this game a complete cakewalk, or if it really is as hard as I remember. It is, after all, the Dark Souls of Burnouts. Right off the bat, I must do my civic duty and turn the Mandarin and Japanese versions of Girlfriend on. Remember, if you forget to do this, you will be hanged, drawn, and quartered. Fun fact, in the Japanese release, the English and Spanish versions of Girlfriend are the ones that come disabled by default. Not even 10 minutes in and I already noticed something that bothers me. No, it's not the 30 FPS thing, although I am really starting to miss the smoothness of the PS2 games. No, I'm talking about the tutorial. I didn't really mind it when I first played it, but now I realize that this is annoying as hell. The game keeps pausing and you can't skip the damn thing, not even if it's the same screen you saw before. Luckily, this only happens on the very first event, so whatever. Differences in this version include slightly different sound effects and the fact that events have 3 opponents instead of 5. Crash Breaker seems to be a bit weaker, though that might just be the much less intense explosion effect fooling me. Weirdly, the game crashed twice, which didn't happen in any of the other Burnouts. The first one was the game's fault, but the second one happened when my Bluetooth earbuds ran out of battery, which apparently is a known issue with PPS SPP. I'm not sure if the 30 FPS cap is the cause, but it's also a lot easier to spin out and get stuck on the eternal loop here. Notably, the World Tour is exactly the same. However, there are 2 extra maps you can, or could, download and play individually. The first one is Carnival Point, based on Rio de Janeiro. That's right, Burnout has come to Brazil. The track is made up of a healthy dose of lens flare on mostly narrow roads. It's not as hard as Autobahn, which is probably the trickiest of the vanilla maps, but I figure you'll still need to clock in a few hours to get good. Shout out to this obelisk, which I assume is meant to be Christ the Redeemer on top of what I assume is Corcovado Mountain. Overall, it's colorful and aesthetically pleasing, but I don't really have any desire to go back to it. Just like the real-life Rio de Janeiro. Red Gate, based in Moscow, is a lot better in my opinion. Sizable roads with very wide curves, just how I like it, that give you tons of space for long burnout chains. Seriously, if I hadn't crashed here, I would have gone up to 100. I was having so much fun. Racing around Moscow with girlfriend playing in the background is pretty funny since my first video is banned in Russia thanks to Avril Lavigne. It's okay, ma'am. I forgive you. I never met a single Russian who doesn't run a VPN constantly anyway. On that note, I was so happy to hear the soundtrack again. Seriously, it's still my favorite one, even though Revenge really gives it a run for its money. And unlike Legends, the full thing is here too. All 36 tracks are accounted for. Sweet! I went out of bounds twice, once in the World Tour, not all the way, but enough to crash my car, and once on Redgate. I got blue-balled again in the final Dominator challenge. I crashed right when I was about to hit 40 burnouts. Regardless, I finished the game in just about 7 hours. Mind you, when I first played Dominator, it took me 19 hours to finish it. And those 7 hours don't even take into account the time I spent with the 2 DLC tracks and the time I spent on smoke breaks. This is weird. Is the PSP version easier than the PS2 one, or have I truly become a Burnout Dominator? Well, let's double check. Oh baby, we're really back to where it all started now. Just to make things a little more interesting, I did enable a few patches this time. Playing this in 16:9 at a constant 60 FPS, including menus and crashes, is an absolute joy. It's a shame that YouTube compression fucks up the footage so bad, because trust me, this game looks absolutely phenomenal. So, how does the PS2 version compare to the PSP one? Well, as it turns out, my suspicions were correct. This is, indeed, considerably harder. It didn't take very long for me to notice that the rubber banding is way more intense here. The traffic density is also higher, which makes it a lot more common for cars to spawn right in front of you when you make a sharp turn or when you drive up slopes. Additionally, it turns out that one glitch where Crash Breaker empties your boost bar but doesn't detonate is also present here. Happened right when I was about to get a rival Takedown too. As I mentioned, the loading screens here are by far the longest ones in the series so far. Way longer than they were in the PSP, although I did notice that the DLC tracks took a bit longer to load. The game crashed 3 times during this playthrough, but it's probably because of the patches. So, revisiting Dominator after experiencing all the games that came before it, I gotta say, I still love it, and it's still my favorite. It has my favorite soundtrack, Burnout Chaining is awesome, the game looks absolutely beautiful, I really enjoy the difficulty, and of course, there are no crash events. Burnout fans must be seething at my disdain for that mode by now, but whatever. Plus, after playing the previous Burnouts, I am way better at Dominator now. I can feel the Dominator coming inside of me. This time, it only took me 10 hours to beat it. That's 3 more hours than the PSP version, and a whole 9 hours less than my first playthrough. I also got the gold medal in the final event on my second try. I did crash once in the final lap, which was really disappointing, but oh well. This is absolute peak. It's official. Burnout Dominator is the latest entry on my list of 10 out of 10 games. I sincerely doubt that Burnout Paradise can top this one, but, well, let's make sure. At last, we've reached the final Burnout game. Released in 2008 and remastered in 2018, Burnout Paradise is a bit of a divisive game as far as I can tell. Still, I'm going in with an open mind. Enough people say that this game is great for me to think it must have a fair bit of enjoyment to offer me. It is by far the game with the most content of the series. Before we get into the game itself, I do have a disclaimer to make. When I bought the game, I couldn't help but notice something. The Steam store page had the mark of the devil. I hate to start on an extremely negative note, but yes, this game does unfortunately require the EA app. Absolutely disgusting. But after dusting off my old account, which I hadn't used in about 10 years,
The cringe is so strong, it's like a bump of coke.
I was prompted with something even more disgusting. Age verification. Fuck you, EA. Regardless of what I think about Burnout Paradise as a game, I absolutely do not recommend buying it on Steam. There are other ways of playing it without dealing with this bullshit. I'm sure you understand what I mean. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the amount of people saying that they can't play the game because it keeps crashing on them. I was a bit worried about that, but for some reason I did not have that problem at all. I played the game completely vanilla, no patches or anything like that, and it only crashed on me once while I was changing the volume settings. I don't know why that is the case, but considering the fact that I often play unpatched New Vegas without crashes as well, maybe I'm just blessed. Works on my machine. Unlike the previous games, Burnout Paradise is open world. A fairly sizable open world full of collectibles, or smashables, super jumps, and drive-thrus to find. Finding all the drive-thrus as soon as possible is a good idea. Gas stations can be used to fill up your boost bar, auto shops can be used to repair your car during events, and junkyards are used to switch your vehicle. And there's also paint shops to repaint your car, but they're not really useful. Super jumps, of which there are 150, can sometimes be used as shortcuts, but they're most useful for scoring points during stunt runs. More on that later. Aside from those, you also have ramps to get some sweet airtime and split ramps that allow you to perform barrel rolls if you get the angle right, which I rarely did. There's a lot more verticality to the gameplay thanks to these, which is a welcome addition. They also allow for some pretty impressive vertical takedowns, but I got none during my playthrough because I'm bad at video games. The smashables consist of billboards and fences, of which there are 165 and 400 of, respectively. I got most of them naturally, but I have no patience for collectibles in excessive numbers, especially when they're not marked on the map, so I didn't bother actively going after them. Speaking of stuff marked on the map, one minor gripe I have with the game is the fact that you can't place waypoints on the map. It's not a big deal, but it would have helped a bit when I started. While driving around Paradise, you can drive from one end of a street to the other under a set amount of time to beat a time roll rule. Every street has one of these. I didn't pay much attention to them at first, but after you unlock some of the faster cars, they're actually pretty fun. It's an extra incentive to drive fast and avoid crashing while you're free roaming on your way to an event. The game has 120 events scattered throughout the map. I was a bit apprehensive about this, but finding all of them really isn't a problem. Races and road rages are pretty much unchanged aside from the fact that you're free to take any route you want. That can be an issue doing races specifically because it's really easy to take the wrong turn when you're still unfamiliar with the map, especially on the western area. Plus, Burnout is really not the kind of game where you can take your eyes off the road to look at the minimap or at the street names at the top of the screen even for a second. You could also just look at the indicators on your car, which is probably the safest way to do it. As for the road rages, they're still pretty fun, but they are by far the easiest iteration of the event in the whole series. The time limit is extremely lenient and the takedown targets are very low, 20 being the maximum. Additionally, the takedowns themselves are very easy to get. Even a slight graze will send your opponent straight into a wall, especially if you're driving an aggression class vehicle. You can also crash a lot more before you're down for good, and you can repair your car in the middle of an event to reset your lives and keep going even longer. Traffic checking does make a return, but it is severely underpowered compared to Revenge. Don't expect to launch cars 4 like they're made of paper mache that magically turns into lead when it hits an opponent. It is extremely situational. Burning laps were turned into burning routes, which are tied to specific vehicles, and completing them unlocks an upgraded version of said vehicle. Maniac events were turned into stunt runs, where you can build up combos by performing burnouts, doing super jumps, barrel rolls, and breaking billboards. They're my least favorite event type. They're nowhere near as exciting as the Maniac events in Dominator, but I guess it's a matter of preference and familiarity with the map. Marked man events consist of reaching the finish line while avoiding being taken out by opponents. I don't really care about it, it's pretty forgettable. In fact, it's so forgettable that I only noticed I forgot to talk about it after I had already finished the rest of the video. Crash events were turned into Showtime road rules, and I still hate them. In fact, I didn't finish a single one, and I don't feel bad about it because if you look at the statistics, they technically don't count as regular events, so I'm not breaking the arbitrary rule I set for myself when I started this project. You can restart or cancel events by pressing right on the D-pad, but I didn't find out about this option until I started Big Surf Island, but it didn't really bother me that much. You can also cancel the event by standing still for a few seconds. Driving back to the starting point is a bit of a pain though. It took me a few hours to get used to how the driving feels here. I think it's fair to say that Paradise is the game where you can really feel the most difference between the cars, which are divided into 3 vehicle classes: Stunt, Speed, and Aggression. Speed cars are the only ones that can chain burnouts. They're the fastest cars, but they're also the weakest. And I mean really weak. This is some Burnout 1 levels of bullshit. Just like in Burnout 1 and 2, you can only activate the boost when the bar is full. Aggression cars are slower and harder to steer, but they're also more resistant and inflict more damage to opponents. In addition to filling the boost bar, takedowns also double and triple its size, just like in Burnout 3 and Revenge. It's a real shame they didn't include the crash breaker or aftertouch features for these cars, but oh well. Finally, stunt cars are optimized for air control and maneuverability. The boost bar is increased by driving dangerously, drifting, and performing jumps and air tricks. After reaching a certain number of event completions, a new car can randomly appear in the streets of Paradise while you're not in an event. Take them out to unlock them and get to a junkyard to select them. They're all damaged when you first choose them, and you can only change their color after repairing them at an auto shop. Kind of a pointless mechanic in my opinion, but oh well. The way the game handles progression is a little weird, for me at least. You have a driver's license that gets upgraded after completing a set number of events. After it is upgraded, the events you completed are reset, so you can replay them for the next upgrade. Except for the burning routes. They can be replayed, but once you finish them once, they don't count towards the next license upgrade. This system is nice in the sense that you can focus on the events you enjoy the most, and it prevents you from potentially reaching a point where there's only one event type you can play to make progress, but honestly, I would have preferred if they weren't reset and you were awarded the final license after completing all 120 unique events right off the bat. You start out with the learner permit, I guess that's what LP stands for, and the game is quote-unquote finished when you get the Burnout license, which took me about 11 hours. After that, you can get the Elite license by completing all 120 events for realsies this time. That took me 23 hours in total. There's a few more licenses you can unlock by getting all the Smashables and finishing all Time Road Rules and Showtime Road Rules, but fuck that. Every time you finish an event, you can take a picture for your license, which is a fun little gimmick, but I really don't like how the webcam is always active instead of just activating when you actually have to take the photo. I really don't want an EA employee jerking off to me while I'm playing Burnout butt-ass naked holding chair. But I suppose in this day and age we're all cam girls. The soundtrack boasts the longest track list of all the franchise, totaling 92 tracks. 90 in the remaster since 2 of them were removed. Half of the tracks from the Burnout Dominator soundtrack return here. 18 to be exact. Very nice. And yes, Girlfriend is one of them, but only the English version. Sad. Aside from those, there's 22 new tracks, the main one being Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, which is the first track you hear when you boot up the game, and believe me, it gets old really quickly. Additionally, there's also a few tracks from Burnout 1 and 2 that make a return, 8 original tracks from Burnout 3 that didn't make it to the final game, and 21 classical music tracks, which are surprisingly fitting. It's always good to hear my GOAT Antonin Dvorak. In a throwback to Burnout 3, DJ Atomica takes over DJ Striker's position as resident yapper. He gives a little introduction when you start an event, and sometimes he talks during free roam, but he doesn't really interrupt the music here like he did in Burnout 3, he just talks over it. Honestly, I didn't hear his voice a lot during free roam because my volume settings look like this. The remaster includes all the content that was added by updates to the original release, and also the Big Surf Island DLC. Burnout Bikes, as the name suggests, adds bikes to the game. 4 of them to be exact. They have their own license that can be upgraded by finishing 38 new events. There are 19 burning rides and 19 midnight rides. The difference between them is the time of day they can be started at. Other than that, most of them are identical to burning routes, except for a handful that are checkpoint based, usually forming a loop. Riding bikes is pretty damn fun, which actually makes me a bit sad because there's so little content here. You can finish all events in less than 2.5 hours, and although they are fun, they are really easy. The time limit is extremely generous, and you can crash and take wrong turns tons of times and you'll still make it. It was very common for me to finish a ride with 15 or even 30 seconds to spare. Hell, I finished the events that go all around the map with over 2 minutes to spare. And why is there only one type of event? Why aren't there any bike races? Or hell, even bike stunt runs would be nice, despite the fact that I didn't particularly enjoy those events in the base game. And why the hell is there no boost? Come on, I would have loved for the bikes to be able to go twice as fast as the cars, as hard as it would be to avoid crashing. Speaking of, another thing that really bothers me is the fact that the rider disappears when you crash the bike. I was really hoping for them to be launched into the air and ragdoll straight into a wall, but no luck. Disappointing, but not surprising considering that this is the same company that censored the word bet in one of the tracks in Burnout Revenge. How desperate for a low age rating do you have to be to censor the word bet? Anyway, it's still an okay addition, especially for a free update. While researching, I learned that this update was also the one that introduced the whole day and night cycle thing. You can also manipulate it in the settings, which is a nice touch because holy shit, this game gets dark at night. Next up is Big Surf Island, a DLC that adds a new island in the eastern part of the map with 15 new events and 9 new cars. Races in Big Surf Island are all checkpoint based, and you can actually see the checkpoints in the world as opposed to the ones in the bike events that are only visible in the minimap. I did notice that the road rages are considerably harder than the ones on Paradise City, mostly because of all the curves and the bumpy terrain. Nothing too complicated though. The island may be small, but it is absolutely packed with ramps and super jumps, or mega jumps as they're called here. Don't get too cocky though. The required score for completing stunt runs are very high to compensate for that. I spent around 30 minutes trying to get 1.2 million points on the final stunt run, which turned out to be the last event I've completed in the game overall. Most of the cars are unlocked by getting the smashables, super jumps, and completing a few challenges, so I really didn't bother with that. Much like the events from Burnout Bikes, it took me about 2.5 hours to complete all of them. But of course, there's a lot more variety here. It's a pretty good DLC, a nice way to wrap it all up. As expected, this was the longest game in the series if you take the extra content into account. It took me about 29 hours to get the Elite license and to finish all the events in Big Surf Island and Burnout Bikes. Burnout Paradise deviates considerably from all the previous games, and it may take a while for you to adjust, but after you do, it's a very enjoyable experience. As I predicted, I still prefer Dominator and Revenge over it, but as far as swan songs go, this is a pretty good one. A perfectly worthy send-off to the finest racing game series out there. Well, it's also the only racing game series I ever played, but the point still stands. In 2014, some of the original Burnout developers did form a studio called Three Fields Entertainment and made a few spiritual successors, but apparently they're not that good. Perhaps I'll try them someday. Well, the ones that don't focus on crash events at least. But after 8 months playing the series, I think I'm satisfied for now. Who could have guessed? The Zoomer did it again. Another project finished, another dopamine spike. Maybe this high will last a little longer. It's drinking time. In total, it took me about 123 hours of playtime to finish all 7 games in this video, and it was a pretty damn good time overall. Here's my ranking. Burnout Paradise and Burnout 3 are pretty close in my opinion, but the crash events left a really bad taste in my mouth, so I'll give Paradise the edge here. Burnout 1 is the only game I think I wouldn't recommend playing. Everything else is definitely worth checking out. This was quite the journey. I gotta say, I'll miss doing the Burnout Shuffle after finishing a race. Between this and the gooning sessions, my right abductor pollicis brevis muscle is ripped as hell. I might also have carpal tunnel syndrome. Now you, yes, you might ask, oh, what about Burnout Crash? You didn't play that one. Yeah, no thanks. As always, look out for new videos someday or maybe never. See you later.
He's scratching on the ticket, would shoot up